Hey, how's everybody doing today? I am Steve Taylor. I am the host and creator of MSP Webinars, and today you're watching yet another installment of these fun webinar videos. So, with that said, today I am joined by two great guys from N2WS, and N2WS is a Veeam company. So I'm joined by Sebastian and Bogdan. So welcome, guys.
Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So Sebastian, you and I were talking a little bit, and I got to say, N2WS is a really interesting name because it just sounds like I don't know. You guys had some like alphabet soup, and you just picked up a few noodles, and that was the inspiration. Like what was the inspiration for N2WS?
Yeah, it's pretty cryptic, isn't it? And I'll be totally honest, there's only a handful of people on this planet who know what it means. It actually stands very simply for not to worry software. So our mission statement is right there in our name.
I like that a lot. And you know, something else I learned about your company is you were acquired by Veeam about a year ago.
That's right. Yeah, a little bit more. About a year and 2 weeks now.
That's great. So when we look at your website, one, I like it. Very, very. I don't want to say it's like a simple website because I almost feel like that's putting it down. But you know, it's just a sharp, clean website, easy to read, easy to navigate. And I see here on your homepage, we're your easy button for DR. One click, 30 seconds, and you're back online. That's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is. And whenever we are at conventions, it's a funny story. I actually spoke to a lady from AWS who took some prospective clients through the convention center, and she took them to several different providers of backup solutions. And we were the only provider that actually showed right there in front of those prospects how we recover. And it's a bold statement, and we can actually back it up. It's not a dog and pony show. So we show recoveries usually right there in our demos.
That's really cool. So I feel like with that, you know, why don't you just kind of dive right into it? I know you've got a presentation, and then I'm going to ask you guys to do a little demo for us as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen.
Looks great.
All right. Excellent. All right. So let's dive into it. Backup and recovery. Like you said, everybody is talking about it now. And that's because, well, the world of service is ending, right? The predictions are by 2021, 73% of all cloud workloads and compute instances will be in a public cloud data center. Physical servers are increasingly becoming obsolete. Whenever I speak to clients, it's never a question on if they will move into the cloud, it's when they will move, or more often than not, they're already there. And some of the clients I work with, they have literally achieved above 95% cloud presence. Now, the state of the public cloud. I always like to say, if you've seen the 2015 movie Steve Jobs, there's this great scene with Fassbinder and Rogan. And Rogan says, I don't think there's a man who's done more to advance the democratization that comes with personal computing than I have. That's what Seth Rogen's version of Steve the Wozniak declares in the movie. And I love that scene because it compares to what Amazon AWS has done. Anyone, anywhere has access to the kind of tech resources that previously only large companies could afford. And there's no initial outlay of funds, and I don't have to worry about my hardware becoming obsolete because it's all virtual. It's all in the cloud. It's self-renewing. And the AWS cloud commands around 40% market share, followed by Microsoft's Azure at roughly 15%, IBM and Google right below 10%, and the next 10 providers combined make up around 15%. So it's clear to see why AWS is so popular. It's really the McDonald's of cloud providers. So the AWS shared responsibility model. which means that AWS provides the virtual hardware and protects that infrastructure. But the data you store within is your responsibility. And you have no idea how often I hear from clients, wait, I thought the cloud is bulletproof. I don't have to do anything to it. Now, what you're seeing here on the screen, that's the AWS shared responsibility model. That graphic is literally taken off of the AWS website. So in the lower portion here, you see what AWS is responsible for. It's responsible for the security of the cloud. So you have that great virtualized hardware, the compute, the storage, the databases, the networking. I don't have to worry about all that physical part of my network anymore. But the upper part, that blue-greenish block that you see here, I always joke around. That blue part, that's what makes you blue, because you're still responsible for the security in the cloud. So just as before, the data that you're storing on there, the operating system, the database that actually runs on these instances, you're still responsible for this data. And AWS doesn't provide you with a backup of this information. So it is your responsibility to make sure that that data that you store in the cloud is safe. So sometimes I actually have to go over this in detail with clients. So why do I need to protect my data? Well, EBS failure. Did you know that EBS has failure built in? Amazon EBS volumes are designed for an annual failure rate of 0.1 to 0.2%, which makes them 20 times more reliable than legacy hard drive, but there's still failure built in. So that means when you have 1,000 EBS volumes, you will lose 2 of them a year. And the biggest threat to that is that you don't get to decide which ones fail and are gone forever. Could be a customer database, could be a document repository. Data loss that could very well spell corporate disaster of epic proportions. And talking about epic proportions, if you want to sleep well tonight, don't do what I'm going to tell you next. Don't Google the words code spaces. It's a company that went out of business a few years back. They did all the right things. They even performed backups, but they didn't create cross-account backups. So their primary AWS account was hacked. They got a ransom note. They said they won't pay. The hacker then deleted all of their mission-critical data. Codespaces went out of business within 24 hours. How's that for a nightmare? Then, of course, AZ failure. It does happen. Regions do go down, and you need to be able to get this data back up and running in another AZ, another region, or even perhaps another AWS account altogether. And human error. The most dreaded word in IT, in my opinion, is oops. Accidental deletion of an instance, a database, or some important data. I hear these horror stories all the time. The database admin worked over the weekend, pulled an all-nighter, and then accidentally deleted the database. So I need to be able to get this data back very quickly.
So I'm sorry, can we go back to that slide real quick? I have some questions.
Sure.
So some of my members, I'll be honest, they are a little intimidated by the cloud. Some of them are not doing any type of cloud servers just because they don't understand some of this stuff. Some of them don't even understand what an EBS is. So, so if we could back up and can we simplify this? Like if you were talking to an office manager at a smaller company, like how would you explain some of this stuff to them?
Oh, well, you're right. Pretty simple, actually. So AWS has a service which is called EBS, which stands for Elastic Block Storage. Think of that as just a hard drive. So it's much like that physical hard drive that you have in servers, in your data center, in your server room, but those EBS volumes, they're virtualized. So they're spread out in the data center, and they have 21 different data centers in the world, AWS. And that's where these volumes, these virtual hard drives are stored. The huge advantage, of course, is it's very fast and it grows. This is why I just the other day I was speaking to a client and I compared AWS to a drug dealer, and I'm sure some lawyers are making phone calls right now, but it is so tempting because it's so easy and it's so fast and it grows with what you need. So if I'm offering a new product, I'm offering a new sweepstakes, and I know a lot of people are going to hit my website, or I know a lot of people are going to hit my database, it's so easy. I don't have to stand up a few more servers and somebody has to rush out and get that hardware. If you have it in AWS, it takes me 3 mouse clicks to scale to what I need. And when I don't need it anymore, I can easily scale it back. So I totally understand the hesitance to get into the cloud, but once you're in the cloud, you will see that it grows with you. And when you don't need the CPU power, the processing power, you can easily scale back. So it's really for exactly what you need in any situation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure thing. All right. So we always say you can have 24/7 access to your data. N2WS provides flexible graphical user interface, driven policies, which makes even automating the entire process a breeze. No data ever leaves your cloud. And I think this is really important because N2WS lives in your AWS account or in your client's account. No data ever goes over the wire. We never have your data. We never transform it into some weird proprietary format that nobody reads other than our software. So you're never shackled to our solution. And we already talked about recovery speed. When I speak to prospects, I usually start with, have you ever performed a disaster recovery? And if the answer is yes, and you'd be surprised how often the answer is, nope, never actually done it. So if the answer is yes, they're usually quite proud of the fact that they can recover a single server in 8, 6, or even 4 hours. We can do a complete recovery in a few seconds. Generally, a recovery of an instance takes less than 60 seconds. One of our larger European customers comes to mind. I did a presentation with them at an AWS summit, Deutsche Bahn. So what they did just a few months ago, they did a worst case scenario of a disaster recovery. And I call it worst case because not only did they pretend that they needed to perform a disaster recovery into another region within the AWS cloud, they also pretended that they lost access to their primary AWS account. So they did a disaster recovery cross-region, cross-account, worst case. And they did a recovery of 400 servers in a little bit under 30 minutes. And the only reason why it took 30 minutes is because they needed to orchestrate. So certain machines needed to spin up in a certain order. So that's really a credit to how fast the recovery is.
So to clarify, the reason you're saying 30 minutes to recover, you said 40 machines?
400.
400. Oof. I mean, that's a lot of machines. And you're like, sorry it took so long. And in my mind, all I can think of is, wait, what? So to clarify, you're saying that it was likely quicker to restore, like do the N2WS one-click recovery than it was to actually, turn on the computer and get it to the login screen. And
pretty much.
And that was part of the process, was getting some of those computers actually booted up and visible before some of the other ones could get turned on, right?
Exactly, right. Exactly. They needed to orchestrate it.
Wow. That's
I know. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. 400 machines in a little bit less than 30 minutes. And they actually did a large presentation with it at an AWS summit, and they showed the data about it. And yep, altogether, N2WS is extremely easy. efficient, and effective. And I usually say that I can even teach N2WS backup and recovery to my mom in about 30 minutes. It's really that easy. You don't need to have dedicated resources anymore to handle backups and have your backup admins unless you really want to. Well, the promise of the cloud delivered. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the promise of the cloud. Just a couple of years ago, we were like, oh my God, this is going to solve all of our problems. And really, it kind of provides whole new problems. But this puzzle graphic, I really like it because here on the left side of the screen, you see what AWS provides you with. It provides you with very powerful APIs, CLI, the Amazon EBS snapshots. So that's what we were talking about, that elastic block storage. Then there's different regions and availability zones. So you're not shackled to one single zone, one single data center. Right now, they have like 21 different data centers across the globe. Very durable storage. And of course, they also have the AWS Lambda scripting, which makes some services a lot easier to manage. But just not finished. It's not a finished puzzle. So that's what you see here on the right side of the screen. N2WS enhances your experience with the cloud, provides you with a very simple user interface and file-level recovery. The reason why that is important is the snapshots of what you get with the backups within AWS. It's an all or nothing. And disasters come in all shapes and sizes. It doesn't have to be your entire environment, like with Deutsche Bahn. It doesn't have to be an entire instance, a server. It doesn't even have to be an entire volume. More often than not, it's probably going to be a file. Somebody deleted a configuration file, or somebody says, I really need this Excel sheet or this really, really important PowerPoint presentation. Can you get this for me? And N2WS allows you to drill into these backups and just retrieve what you really need. We have very convenient disaster recovery, very speedy. We'll actually show one of those recoveries in a moment. Auditing, reporting, and alerting. So this is very important as well. We'll talk about that in a moment, because anything that happens within the product, we have the ability to audit this and report on it in detail. And of course, also very important is application consistent backups. The backup functionality within AWS usually provides crash consistent backups, which is okay for most data, but it's really not desirable for your database service. And N2WS provides you the best of both worlds. So we have that really fast, rapid backup using the snapshot capabilities, but then we also have the application consistent backups, which means that when I spin up a recovered database, it will be able to pick up exactly at the moment where we backed it up. So let's talk a little bit about our MSP partner network. So program outline, main benefits, gain value through efficiencies. Backup and recovery offers a whole new revenue stream for services. Backups aren't a nice to have, they are a must. It's like car insurance. Nobody likes paying car insurance, but everybody does, because any other course of action is pure craziness. You want to be able to have a backup plan, for lack of a better term, a backup plan for your data solutions. So quick overview, and I'll make it real quick because I'll actually show you the live product. So we do have disaster recovery built into the product. This allows you to do a disaster recovery of your data, a disaster recovery backup into another region, into another data center on another continent. Remember back in the day when Iron Mountain came by and picked up the tapes or the hard drives at the end of the day and then shipped them across the continent? I can literally move my entire corporate data across continents, across 3 time zones in 3 mouse clicks. And we already talked about the backup policies. Everything within the product is policy and schedule driven. Super easy to deploy because it's essentially an appliance from the AWS marketplace. We did talk about the rapid recovery, very quick. And of course, we have a wealth of dashboards, the monitoring, alerting, and also a third-party integration as well. So we do have the ability to recover not just the workloads, but also the infrastructure that goes along with it. A lot of times people are really preoccupied with, okay, I need to have that data available. Your data is important. There's no two ways about it. But of course, the infrastructure is just important. Think back in legacy terms, the cabling, the routers, the switches, well, all of that is really important as well. And in the AWS cloud, well, that's called the VPC, the subnets, the routing tables, and your security groups. So just having the ability to recover the data is good, but everything else is missing. And with N2WS, we also capture that information as well. So I can very quickly move my entire data, plus the infrastructure, the backbone that goes along with it, into another data center. And of course, lowering your client's RPOs and RTOs, that's really important. And being able to beat these times, as I was saying, usually I'm talking to clients 8, 6, 4 hours. They're completely blown away when I can tell them, yeah, in a couple of minutes we can recover it. So that is a huge driver as well. And of course, also cost reduction. We do have the ability to archive your long-term storage backups into S3, which is about 40% cheaper than leaving it in the regular EBS snapshots. So if we're recovering an information or workload in a few seconds, nobody is going to blink twice if you tell them, well, the recovery of some data from 26th of October 2014 is going to take 5 minutes instead of 60 seconds because there's a trade-off. S3 is cheaper, but it's a little slower than the EBS, but that's going to be fine for the long-term archival. Then also multi-tenancy. So you really only need a single installation of N2WS, and then you can set it up so that your customers can use the same login screen, but they wouldn't even be aware of each other. It's just simply an appliance that you offer to them. You can either manage it for the customers or you can let them manage it themselves. And really important, and I always bring this up, is a single pane of glass. Sometimes I talk to clients who are saying, well, there is some capability for backups already built into AWS, which is very rudimentary, and it never gives me that single pane of glass. I see backups in one region, but then there's a whole bunch of different regions, 21 different data centers. Wouldn't it be nice to actually see all of the backups across all the accounts, across all of the different regions? And that's what we provide you with. And as I said, it's super easy. It's absolutely super easy to do. Usually a complete installation of our software, of our solution, takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And then when somebody starts playing around with it, after about another 15, 20 minutes, they become pretty familiar with it, pretty comfortable and very happy with it because it really is very easy to learn. The reporting, I did mention that. So it makes it very easy to create detailed reports on how your clients' workloads and their infrastructure are being protected. So it's very easy to actually create invoicing and all of that based on the reporting. Also, there is a RESTful API, which means that it integrates into third-party products. Some of our clients actually integrate the backup solution into their ticketing systems. You can also feed all of the information from N2WS backup and recovery into log consolidation tools. And independent users, that's what I was talking about with the multi-tenancy. So you can either manage the backups for the customer, for your clients, or you can give them direct access to the solution. But as I said, they wouldn't even be aware of that anybody else is using the appliance because they have a login, they log it in, and then they only see their resources. So the MSP growth model licensing is pay as you go. It's very easy. So we always work with you on this as well. GDPR and other certifications, this is very important as well, because you need to be able to retrieve certain information that you stored at some point. And with our reporting, you'll be able to pinpoint those backups that you need. And as I said, training employees is extremely fast, and you get to delegate that to your employees very quickly. You don't even need a designated, dedicated resource for that. So here is a small sampling of our MSP partners across the globe. We are acutely aware and conscientious of the challenges that MSPs face in this economy, in this market segment. Like you said, sometimes there is some hand-holding necessary to really get them into the cloud and very familiar with that. And we are always available to our partners. And I like this list. So this is an incomplete list of some of our customers. Makers of flavored sugar water, space exploration, manufacturers of guided missile systems and submarines, insurance companies, pharmaceutical vertical to higher learning. They all utilize and trust N2WS to protect and recover their mission-critical data at a drop of a hat. So yeah, it's super easy to register as a partner. Essentially, it's just n2ws.com/partners. That'll take you to the registration, to the sign-up sheet, and then you will get contacted by one of our representatives. And there are some extremely attractive plans that you want to take a look at there as well. So, Stephen, well, this is demo time. Are you ready to actually see the product?
Oh, of course.
All right, so let me share my screen. So that's the AWS Marketplace. As I said, N2WS Backup and Recovery, it's just an appliance. So it's already pre-configured. The only thing that you need to do is you just simply choose which region you'd like to spin it up in. As you can see, all of the different regions are available. You just simply hit the continue button, and then N2WS spins up as just another instance in your environment. And it's also extremely lean. It's only a T2 small. So this isn't some huge system that we need to spin up. And it's not a software as a service solution. And the huge advantage here is that, well, you're not sharing it with other customers. And of course, you're also not reliant on some service being up and running in order to perform backups and restores. All right, so this is what it looks like once it's spun up. This is the multi-tenancy portion I was talking about. So we do provide identity provider support, which means Active Directory, Federation services, or if you have a single sign-on solution which speaks SAML, that's going to work just fine. Now, for our purposes, let's log in as the root admin user who gets to see everything, because I really want to show you that single pane of glass. So this is what it looks like. I know. Looks a little bit confusing. A lot of buttons, a lot of features, but trust me, in a few minutes, really everybody gets a hold of that because it really is that easy. It's very intuitive. You have this blue band up here with the different tabs. First one is Backup Monitor. That's the single pane of glass I was talking about. So this shows you all of the backups you've performed across all regions and across all AWS accounts. Of course, you can start filtering this. And as I mentioned, everything within the product is policy and schedule driven. Don't worry, and we're going to bore you by showing you how to create schedules. But let me show you how to create the policies which define what we're backing up. So when you create a new policy, you can assign a policy to an AWS account or multiples. And then also I can assign the policy to an N2WS backup and recovery user or groups of users. So that gives me a multi-tiered approach to define who gets to see what and what exactly do they get to do within the product. Then generations to save, that's your retention period. And a little further down, then you can associate this with a schedule. And as you can see, you can also associate it with multiple schedules, which makes it really easy to create that grandfather, father, son methodology. All right, we're still missing something. What exactly do I want to back up? So here I have a policy already, and here on the right side of the screen, that's my backup targets. This is where I choose what I want to back up. I'm already backing up 3 of my Windows-based servers. And here on the right side of the screen, I can choose additional services. So I can choose instances to back up, and that will include all of the volumes. That's super important because it works like your brain. When you're thinking servers, you're probably thinking the entire entity. You're not thinking particular volumes. But if you really wanted to, you do have that option. So you can also back up just the volumes, just the virtual hard drives by themselves. The add instances, of course, has that big advantage that I don't have to have post-it notes on the side of my monitor, which says, okay, so I'm just backing up volumes, and now I have to be able to actually puzzle the contents of each of these volumes back together to make a machine that I can spin up. We're going to take care of all of that for you. Then you can also use backup and recovery to back up RDS databases. Now, that's all of the different flavors that that AWS supports. Aurora clusters, Redshift clusters, and DynamoDB tables. It really makes no difference which service you're backing up because it all works the same. So let me show you what that looks like. So all I have to do is I just click on the plus sign. Then I can browse through the different regions that I have access to based on the policy we created. And then I choose which resources I want to back up just simply by tick boxing. Click Add Selected, and that's really all there is to it. From that point on, N2WS will create operational backups of the data into the same region where the data is currently residing, which is pretty good, but it doesn't give you that disaster recovery because remember we talked about code spaces and region outages. So that's what the DR backups are for. And that's configured right here with this DR button. So here you can see, well, every time you're creating a backup, also create a disaster recovery backup into the following regions. Now, in my case, all of my workloads are all located in North Virginia, and that's why I usually choose Ohio to be my disaster recovery region, because nothing bad ever happens in Ohio.
It's true. I live in Ohio, and nothing bad ever happens in Ohio.
See, that's exactly what I think too. Now, if you're paranoid and you're saying, well, what about multiple region outages? It could happen. Then all I have to do is just simply tick box where I want to create additional backups. So one in Europe and one in Asia, and hey, why not? Let's also create one in South America. So at this point, I have disaster recovery backups on every continent. Only an Earth-ending event is going to bring down my infrastructure. And I think then that meteorite hits and Bruce Willis isn't going to stop it. Then we're probably mostly looking for shelter and food. Down here, that's your ultimate in peace of mind, because that's what I was talking about with code spaces. 2 mouse clicks. All they would have had to do is say, yeah, I want to create an additional disaster recovery backup into a separate, unrelated AWS account. And then if something really terrible happens, I can spin up the data in that account or from that account. Now, all the backups in the world aren't going to do you any good if it's very difficult and time-consuming and complex to get the data back into play. So let's talk about that. So let's say I want to recover one of my Windows servers. So first I'm going to sort this. And as you can see, I'm preparing daily backups. But using the cloud, let's just move away from this. You can lower your RPO to minutes. Some of our clients actually perform backups in 5, 10, 15-minute intervals. If something really terrible does happen, I can just turn back time for 5 minutes and I'm back in business. So I'm going to make a decision now. So that's the backup I want to recover. So I'm going to click on the recover button. Because we did configure this with disaster recovery in mind, I now have the option to restore either to the region where the data originally came from or my disaster recovery region. I also have the option to restore into an entirely different AWS account. And because I actually performed the disaster recovery backup into another account, I can also restore from that account. And these menus, they're completely mix and match. So I could recover from my secondary account into my primary, into my disaster recovery region. That's completely doable. And some customers actually do that. They use our product for migration purposes to migrate data from one account to another or from one region to another. And then here on the right side of the screen, those are my actual recover modes. We have 3 different modes. First one is instance recovery. So somebody intentionally or unintentionally deleted an entire instance. An entire server plus all of the volumes are gone. And we can recover this within seconds. And that also includes the infrastructure, and I'll show you that in a moment. A volumes-only recovery, well, in this case, we're going to assume the instance still exists, so we just have to recover a particular volume, so a particular virtual hard drive. Now, I can pick and choose which ones I want to recover, and all of this isn't for show. I can actually make changes to this. So I can change the type of the volume I'm recovering. I can change the speed of this volume, and I even have the option to switch attached volumes and delete the old ones. The way I usually visualize this is think of an old-fashioned physical server. Hard drive crashes, terrible things happen. What am I going to do? I'll just pull out the hard drive and replace it with my cloned backed up drive. And that's exactly how this works. And then last but not least, explore. So as I mentioned, sometimes you just want to get to a certain folder or a certain file. And that's going to provide you with a nice file manager, and you can drill into the backup and only retrieve what you actually need. All right, the proof is in the pudding, right? So let's do a recovery. We haven't talked about Linux yet, so let's do a Linux recovery. So this policy here backs up my Linux instances, and one of them happens to be SQL. So that's my Apache, and that's my SQL. And this isn't an all or nothing. I can actually pick and choose which ones I want to recover. So let's do an instance recovery of my SQL. That gives us a few more options here. And that's the infrastructure I was talking about. So of course, we back up all of the VPC settings, the subnet settings, the actual IP address, the security groups which were assigned to that server, the instance type, how big is that instance scaled in the AWS cloud. But if you change your mind, we can also make changes to this. So I can spin this into a different subnet, into a different VPC, assign a different IP address to it, or maybe I want to create a clone of my production environment in another region or in another account for testing purposes. It's a staging environment. Does it really have to be full size? Probably not. So I can just simply lower the size then, and then I have that huge advantage that I'm testing with production data in a testing environment. And if I do decide to recover everything in another region or another account, I can also clone that entire infrastructure as well. Now, in my case, my instance is still up and running, so I don't want to cause an IP conflict. So let me blank this so that AWS gets to assign a new IP address to it. Then I'm going to click Recover Instance, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? You want to recover this entire instance, and you want to do it right now in front of everybody? Sure, why not? What's the worst that can happen, right? Let's find out. All right, so operation succeeded, and one instance was launched. Now, if we're quick enough, I can actually show you what that looks like. This is my EC2 console, so all I have to do is just refresh that screen, and we'll be able to watch this data being recovered right there. It's still pending, and it's probably going to stay like that for another 20, 25 seconds or so. Now, you see that button, that's still yellow. Now, the moment that button turns green, because of a feature that Amazon calls the lazy loading feature, that instance will be fully functional and operational. So in my case, with my SQL database, that means the moment that button turns green, I can immediately start hitting it with SQL transactions. It's not going to time out. I'm not going to get any error messages, even though my status checks are still running. Now, the recovery time of an instance is largely dependent on the size of the instance. Big surprise there. But we've done some extensive testing with backup and recovery. We have the ability to recover a 14 terabyte database instance in about 3.5 minutes. So even if your environment is absolutely huge, that will be able to recover it very, very, very quickly. Couple other things. So you do have the ability to manage multiple AWS accounts in a single installation of backup and recovery. You also have the option to go cross-account. Then notifications. So if you want to send out nice daily summaries or alerts, oh, things aren't going so fine, then you can do that as well. N2WS also has the ability to back up itself. A lot of times I get this question, what happens if the backup solution itself fails? Or maybe the region that it's installed in isn't available. That's my very first backup policy right there, CPM data. So when you spin up backup and recovery from the marketplace, in your disaster recovery region, so let's say in my case, that's Ohio, then it would spin up and say, well, are you spinning up a brand new version or are you performing a disaster recovery? If I say disaster recovery, it's going to find my backup off my backup solution. And that entire process only takes about 90 seconds. Under users, you can choose who gets to use the solution and exactly what can they do. File level recovery, are they allowed to only see the reports? You can be as granular as you'd like to be. And then once you start talking about backups, how can you save us money? So that's what the S3 repositories are about. It's super simple. All you have to do is you just define which S3 buckets backup and recovery is allowed to use. Then under policies, you have an additional button right here, copy to S3. If I just move this a little bit out of the way, you can see in my Linux SQL backup, I'm keeping 3 snapshots for my rapid recovery. So 3 stages, 3 generations I can go back, and past that point, that's why I'm going to use my S3 for long-term archival, in my case, 14 days. But hey, you can raise this to weeks, months, or even years if you wanted to. And that's really going to help you lower your storage costs. If you take a look at your AWS storage cost, most of that is backups. So you can almost take that number and almost cut it in half. And then the ability to recover the infrastructure, let me show you that real quick as well, because this is a really nice feature. So clone VPC. So I can take my infrastructure, my backbone, from one region and choose which ones and which backup we took. So we captured the settings of that infrastructure, the routing tables, the VPC settings, the subnet settings, the security groups, and then clone it into any region. So, hey, if my management would decide, hey, we want to recover everything in Frankfurt, yeah, absolutely, I can do this. All I have to do is just click the clone VPC button. If you do feel so inclined, you can even take that entire configuration and then export it into a CloudFormation template. That kind of sort of serves as your offsite backup of your backbone configuration. One more thing, and I really want to show you this. Version 2.5 is literally only out about 7 days. And there's only a handful of people who have seen this, Stephen. I really wanted to show you this feature because it's really cool. So next week, Backup and Recovery also has this feature right here, resource control. I'm sure there are some instances, some workloads that don't need to be running 24/7 in the cloud. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's so easy to spin up instances, but then you have a lot of instances that really don't need to run all the time. But AWS doesn't care. They're going to send you a bill for all of those services that are constantly running. So what I did is I created a group called All Non-Essential Machines. Just like my backup targets, I have resource targets, and I can choose which instances and which databases don't need to be running 24/7. So now I have an on and off schedule. So I can say, well, outside business hours, I'm going to turn them off, and in the morning, I'm going to turn them on. And over the weekend, yeah, I'm going to turn them off as well. So that means that your running cost of these instances is going to be drastically reduced as well. So instead of running them 24 hours a day, you're only running them about 8 or 9 hours a day, which well, saves you about 60% on running costs within the AWS cloud. So really, there's a huge cost reduction. So that's a super high-level overview of the solution. Any questions?
So yeah, so one of the things that you said a while ago, N2WS. This is so easy. You could teach your mom how to use it.
That's right.
And it looks very easy. However, let's say you're a smaller MSP and you've got 1 or 2 clients in AWS. So maybe you're only backing up 5 servers or 2 servers, right? So you go in there and you configure it. And then you really don't need to touch it again unless you need to recover something or do some DR testing, right?
That's right. And the cool thing is, even my clients don't need to speak to me when they add resources. That's the automation that I was talking about. See, within the EC2 console, and by the way, yeah, the recovery is done here. So within the EC2 console, if the database admin we talked about earlier, he's going to spin up some more instances over the weekend because he needs some more instances running some more services. He doesn't even need to talk to me to make sure that they're going to get backed up. When they launch a new instance, we have a custom tag called CPM backup. And then when they launch an instance, all they have to do is just simply spin up that instance and fill this tag with the name of a policy you want backup and recovery to use to back up that instance. And this can also be multiple policies as well. They're just going to be separated by semicolon. You can even push configuration settings through this tag. So the person doesn't even need to have access to the console itself. The system just simply picks up what it needs to back up and then does it.
Okay, and that's amazing, truly. But I'm going to go back to the you can teach your mom how to do it. So let's say you set this up, or mom sets this up, right? Mom gets all the servers configured, and when we say mom, we're talking about MSP techs too. But I'm still going to use that analogy because it's funny. So mom gets all of these backups set up, and then maybe mom doesn't do DR testing like she should because moms get busy. Moms can't always do DR testing. So
that's right. That's right.
so let's say a year and a half goes by and something crashes. And we're not going to worry about what if the backups aren't working right because she wasn't testing it. I'm not even going there right now. In a year and a half, mom doesn't remember how to use this software. In 6 months, mom might not remember how to use this software. So what is available to us as MSP partners when we need to do a recovery and we don't know what we're doing?
Very, very quickly. That's what I was talking about, because we also have that RESTful API. So when you set this up, you can even configure this that nobody needs to come to this console. So we always talked about that I don't need to come to this console to add resources. And I don't even have to come to this console if I'm trying to perform a recovery. So if you set this up and tie it into your ticketing system, well, just log a ticket, and then it will automatically, through the RESTful API, do the process for you. So you could theoretically completely automate the process from the moment that you're including a resource into a backup policy up to the point where you're performing recovery of the resource.
And that sounds cool, but let's go back to mom, right? Mom doesn't understand what a RESTful API is or know how to use one. It's like, and let's face it, there's a lot of MSPs that that are a little more knowledgeable than mom, but there are many MSPs out there that aren't that great with coding, or don't understand API stuff or any of that. So I think a better question is to go back to my question. When I said what's available to us when we just don't know what we're doing, do you guys have tech support or customer service that we can call when we are freaking out because we don't know what we're doing and we have to recover a server that's down?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there's actually several different avenues.
Okay.
So we have a wealth of videos, self-taught videos. They're actually step by step by step by step, where it shows you exactly how to perform all of these different things that I just talked about. We have pretty much a teach video step by step. You're going to just pause it and go through it. That's one way. We have very detailed documentation for all of the different subsections, everything that I just described. And of course, we also have support. We have a 24/7 follow the sun support model.
Got it.
So this means that if you feel like speaking to somebody at 3 in the morning on Sunday morning, absolutely, you're always going to get a live person.
Excellent. And that was going to be my next question was, what are the hours of availability? And it sounds like 24/7.
That's right.
Okay, so let's talk about some pricing things. So it looked as though you spun up an N2WS, like I'll call it an appliance or a server in AWS, and that's what's running the software for you. So there's a cost to running the AWS instance for the N2WS appliance. Is there also a cost for like licensing?
So yes, the appliance itself runs in AWS, and that's why I was saying it's extremely lean. It runs only on T2 small instance, which means that's going to cost you about $14 a month to run the instance. And the reason why this is important,
that's super affordable. Like I'm not even upset with you now.
Exactly, because sometimes I talk to clients and like, well, how much is this going to cost us? A few $100 at least, because how much do we need? X4 extra large? No, not at all. It's a T2 small, $14 a month. And then apart from that, there's different things how the product itself is licensed. And you can contact us on the details, but essentially it's two things. It's the instances that you're protecting and the AWS accounts that you want to back up. So it's those two, and it's pretty individual. We also have the ability to custom tailor something.
Got it. And I want to clarify, like I see there's a small environments and a large environments, and it looks like, and I understand like service providers like MSPs, we've got, custom pricing so that way we can resell this or include it in our service plans or whatever. But I'm seeing for there's a plus edition that's $5 an instance a month. So going back to mom that's running 5 servers, is that the version she's going to do? Is $25 a month? 5 times 5?
So the Plus edition, that's for if you're beyond the Enterprise edition. So what you're seeing on our website, and that's just the pre-made, packages. They're pre-bundled. If you have a certain number of AWS accounts, you have a certain number of EC2 instances that you're trying to protect. So we have the Standard Edition, the Advanced Edition, and we also have the Enterprise Edition. When you go beyond the boundaries of the Enterprise Edition, that's the Plus Edition. And as I said, we actually have the ability, when you take a look at the service provider column on our pricing list, we have the ability to completely customize this. Now, in case of my mom, I would probably suggest she should just go with the free edition. We do have a free edition of all of this. It's a little limited with the features. So for example, you don't have the cross-account disaster recovery. You don't have the ability to back up into S3 for long-term retention. And also the VPC backup isn't available. But if you're below 5 instances, you can actually use our free edition.
Okay. That's not bad. And then there is, and then it just kind of goes up from there. You've got a standard edition where it'll do 20 instances, and that one does include the VPC. You've got an advanced edition that'll do 50 EC2 instances, and that one will do cross-account DR, or it'll back up to S3. So, you guys have spelled it out really well. If someone goes to n2ws.com and clicks the pricing link, they can at least see, and I'm just going to call it retail pricing. Now, like you said, you can put together you can put together something that's a little more customized for us MSPs. Now, let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. That's what happens when you get a cold. All right, so the one thing that we really like about Veeam, and I'm talking Veeam proper, is for local server backups, it's really simple. Okay, I've got 13 servers across 3 clients. As an MSP, I know it's going to cost me X dollars a server, and let's call it $10 a server. I don't recall the cost, but it's an OpEx, not a CapEx, so it's one of those recurring subscriptions. So it's a reasonable rate. So if they're doing 13 servers, I just know that my cost of goods sold is $10 a server for each of those clients. So with what you're offering for service providers, are you going to give us a per instance price to make it easy on us, or are we going to have to buy something similar to one of these different editions where it's a bundle? Because that makes it harder for us to do the books.
Right.
I can jump on if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Hi. So
take it away.
yeah. So the way this works, Steve, when you're an MSP and you're handling a bunch of clients, even if you have a couple of small clients, a couple of big clients, your different infrastructures, and then as an MSP exactly what you are going to be using and what you are going to be needing in order to cover your entire infrastructure, which you can then, of course, configure and reconfigure as the months go by. So the reason we have this growth plan is to actually help you get your customers on board. So you can start off with a very small commitment, or actually no commitment if you just want to test it out, and then work your way up to covering your entire infrastructure, your entire client's infrastructure. So that's why it's hard to say it's going to cost you X amount of dollars for everything, because no two infrastructures are the same.
And that's understandable. That's understandable. I guess what I was trying to understand is, are you guys going to be able to give us a, all right, we won't worry about how many AWS accounts or, all of that stuff. We'll just charge you per EC2 instance. Like, are you going to do something like that for us as MSPs, so that way it's easier for us to understand what our cost of goods sold are on our services?
Yes, but you will basically need to have at least one account to run those instances. So you're going to have that main account, which will be factored in, and then the amount of volume you need.
Okay, perfect.
Right. And I do encourage at this point, because I know we only have a couple of minutes left. So if anyone listening in would like to try it out, you can either go ahead and do a trial run through the marketplace directly, or go to our website and register as a partner under partners. And also for everyone attending, we offer $100 worth of AWS credits. That's in order to help you play around a little bit with the infrastructures and everything you might be needing in running let's say, a proof of concept.
And how do people access those credits? Do they have to reach out? Do they have to hit the become a partner button?
Yeah, just register as a partner under n2ws.com/partners, and I'll personally be in touch with them and give them the actual codes for
Perfect.
the credits.
Well, hey, that's really awesome of you guys that you're giving out credits, and that's not like a exclusive to members of MSP webinars thing. I want to clarify that this is available to anyone that goes to the N2WS website and hits become a partner. That's something that you, Bogdan, will offer to these people as a way to test this thing out in a safe environment without botching up one of their existing clients.
Yeah, exactly. Sure thing. And we do encourage testing it out because, as Sebastian said, it is really easy. And yeah,
Cool.
you
Well,
can see
hey,
for
guys,
yourself.
thank you so much for doing this. I've learned a lot. I feel like mom should rest easy that her servers and her client servers will be safe using N2WS. And again, on the N2WS homepage, you can get there n2ws.com. And it's really cool because right there on the homepage, it says we're your easy button for DR. One click, 30 seconds, and you're back online. And I feel like you showed us how that works. Thanks so much for doing this, Sebastian and Bogdan. Feel free to send me any questions if you'd like, anyone that's watching this, or feel free to go to n2ws.com and hit that partner button to get the process started. Thanks so much, guys. You all have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Stephen. It was great being part of this.